Hey, everybody. I know it's been more than a minute, but I am back with another strategic thought. And I'm going to start trying to do these every Friday or at least once a week on something that's trending in the communications industry or perhaps a topic that I see a lot of people engaging with, just something that brings some piece of relevant information forward for everybody. And that's kind of where we're starting with today. I've seen a lot of stories and articles recently about leadership, everything from how to be a good leader to ways to lead small teams to ways that leaders can just bring their teams together and be a good leader. In fact, I'm in the middle of reading Dare to Lead by Brene Brown, so the timing kind of works out perfectly for this particular topic. And as you'd expect, I tend to look at everything through a communications lens. So as I've been reading these articles and Brene's book, I've been thinking about how PR and communications pros can step up to lead and utilize some of these pieces of information and tips that are being conveyed. And whether that's leading your own teams, leading for the clients that we serve, or just leading in the industry, I took some of these underlying themes that I've noticed across each of these articles and even the books. And believe me, all of them have a lot of same underlying themes. And I thought I'd just provide some context for communicators on how we can use these themes to push our campaigns, our profession, and our industry forward. So, the first theme that I saw across all of these articles was creating a set of clear goals. And I know what you're thinking, and you're right. There is nothing earth shattering about this piece of advice. I'm sure it's something we've all heard for many years since the beginning of our careers. And this is true for any strategic plan, but for a very specific reason, it's true for communications professionals. And in my mind, it's all about value and success. The value of what we can deliver as communicators hinges on the expectations that our clients and the organizations that we serve have about what we are working on. Every campaign and every client is different, which means the goals that determine the success of these efforts vary from person to person and business to business. And if we can't create clear goals and communicate those goals to stakeholders, then we're limiting our chances of achieving success for those efforts. So whether you're working on a specific campaign or with a specific client or for a specific organization, it tends to break down to three areas for me. And the first is clearly outlining the goals of these efforts. And that means knowing what success looks like when you get to the end of the campaign. Second is tying those goals to company goals so you can show that you are helping through these efforts to drive organizational success. And third is clearly communicating those goals to stakeholders so they understand that the value, so they understand the value of what you are bringing forward for the organization. So the next theme is considering your own personal values and what drives you. And I really like this piece of advice. I just read another article recently about quiet quitting. And I think that's a different topic, but it did kind of bring something forward. One of those underlying themes was not being passionate about the work that you're doing. And for communicators, our job is to tell stories in a way that resonates with audiences. And quite frankly, if we're not passionate about the work we're doing, how can we expect to be passionate about the stories that we're trying to tell? And I'm not saying that you need to be passionate about every product or every service that you represent. What I am saying is that you need to find a way to connect the dots from your passions to the work that you're doing. So figure out what drives you, what gets you out of bed and going in the morning, and find ways to connect that motivation to the work that you're doing and to your profession. The third theme that I've noticed is adapting your leadership style. Communicators must be some of the best adapters of any field that I've ever seen. Our whole job is to understand who we're talking to and how best to communicate with that specific group at that specific time with that specific message. Adapting is what we do from a day-to-day basis. And that's true of the teams that we lead. You'll find some of the most diverse people on communications teams, which is, one of the best things about our profession. And that means communications leaders need to adapt how they're engaging and motivating every member of the team. This is the same principle as tailoring your message to a specific audience. Whether you're talking about your team, you're talking about communicating with external audiences, that same principle applies. The biggest takeaway for me that we all need to remember is it's not about you or me specifically. We need to put the ego aside for a minute and think about how we need to adapt to reach whatever goal that we put in front of ourselves and our teams. And finally, it's about embracing accountability. Accountability is a theme I see time and time again as I'm reading all of these articles and thinking about leadership. Holding yourself and others accountable is one of those areas where leaders always seem to fall short, and it's always a big piece of advice that you see floating around. And in my experience, it's also where a lot of communications, campaigns, and teams fall short. It's not easy, quite frankly. We operate in a space that is always changing and evolving. Audience expectations shift, stakeholder expectations shift. How we need to reach them changes on a minute by minute basis, and the messaging that we have to reach them with continues to evolve on a constant basis. So that doesn't mean we can fall short of holding ourselves accountable. Just because things change and things shift doesn't mean we can fall short of holding ourselves accountable. For agencies and solo practitioners, this goes back to creating a clear set of goals and using those as your North Star to measure the success of your campaigns and your efforts. So be sure to think through your goals and find goals that are attainable. Use that SMART goals method you hear so much about and pay attention to that attainable part. For leaders, first make sure you're holding yourself accountable to your teams. And then make sure you're holding your teams accountable to the goals that have been established while supporting them in reaching those goals, which is holding yourself accountable. I still believe communicators have an amazing opportunity. I've said this many times over the last several months and the last couple of years. We have an amazing opportunity to step up as strategic leaders within the organizations that we serve, the groups that we operate within, and the teams that we're honored to lead. So start combining some of these leadership themes within our industry and the work that you're doing, and we will be well on our way. And there's your strategic thought for the day. Thanks so much for tuning in. We will see you back again soon with another strategic thought. In the meantime, make sure you check out tcstrategic.com for more blog posts and more videos. Thanks.